Sam Altman said, like, 80% of our industry isn't going to be around in 3 or 5 years. Those numbers might be misremembered on my part, but I will say that there's a mass amount of agencies that don't need to exist anymore.
Welcome to the Happy Clients Podcast, brought to you by Dot & Company. Whether you're a virtual assistant, an agency owner, or a client-facing account manager, we all deal with clients. Lucky for you, client management is what we do best. Now, let's dig in, chat cam life, and have some fun along the way. Cheers to happy clients.
Welcome back to the show, Steve. Super excited to have you here.
I'm pumped to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I love chatting with you because you're just such a great energy. I feel every time we talk or even email, it's like we vibe. So I looked forward to this conversation.
Likewise, big time.
Yeah.
100% excited.
Cool. So this year has been crazy, or 2025 was crazy. What have you been seeing with your agency clients?
Man, so your crazy is, I think, different. You experienced a whole lot in your world, which, is a level of excitement that most business owners don't get to experience. But what I've seen the most this year is kind of cautious optimism, right? Is it going to get better? I hope it is. Let's plan for it to get better and hold the heck on with all might, because it might not, right? So we came into the new year with, at least here in the US, a massive disruption in the government and a massive disruption in most of our sectors. So early in the year, it was nonprofits, higher ed, mission-driven organizations getting funding slashed, needing to rework all of their missions and voice to the public to not be aligned with what they want to be aligned with. So agencies were, seriously hurt from that. Then roll on the tariffs and how that impacted CPG and B2C industry and what that looks like from a spend into agencies. I think the middle part of the year, spring through fall, was really tough for a lot of agencies. They were holding on, stacking cash, very afraid to make moves. A lot of people were laid off, as you know. And then layer in AI and offshore solutions, and man, you got a cyclone in our industry that is, I don't know if I've ever seen it. Like, sure, we've seen some crazy stuff in the 30 years I've been in the industry. I don't know that I've seen it like this.
Really?
Yeah. But that said, I would wager most agencies are starting to see in Q4 some sort of a rebound, some sort of okay, we found our stride. Again, forget about the AI layer. Just from a pipeline, biz dev, shoring up cash flow, team support, I do think going into the new year, agencies are feeling a stronger sense of confidence. The deals that were taking way longer to close, like maybe that's compressed a little bit, not drastically, but deals have closed this year that coming into the new year was like, I don't know if things are going to close. Like, they're dragging their feet, right? So this time of year in general is really challenging for any B2B service industry. Mm-hmm. All of our clients are going to, between Thanksgiving in the US and New Year's, nobody's around. You can't close business. So what are you supposed to do to lock things in for next year?
Right.
But it's been a challenging year for a lot of agencies.
Yeah. What are agencies feeling when it comes to AI? I've been having a lot of conversations with agency owners about, we're beyond just ChatGPT helping with writing copy and blog posts. It's now taking over how we do business.
Yeah.
What are you seeing?
I've talked about these 4 stages that I see agencies falling into or finding their way into. There's the agencies that have been around for a really long time. It's a traditional brand person, and maybe he or she are stuck in their ways and really not okay with how do we adapt yet again. We've gone through, the '08 turmoil. We've gone through the recessions. I don't want to reinvent myself again. And so they're just kind of panic selling or shutting down or retiring or whatever. Then there's the kind of AI curious stage where let's figure out how to, like you said, how to do the very top level, write me a blog post, give me some tagline ideas. Maybe there's a couple people on the team that are just tinkering, but there's no roadmap. There's no true process. So they're curious, and maybe they'll figure it out. Then the third level is like, all right, we have an AI roadmap. We have somebody who's leading the charge on our team. Maybe it's CEO. Maybe it's a Gen X person on the team who's like super freaking like curious and tech savvy and whatever. And they've got a strong plan. And then the advanced people are like, we're selling AI solutions, very upfront about it. We're finding challenges that our clients have, and we're selling them an AI solution, either building something that is their AI LLM or using AI to build something for them. That fourth one, they are going to thrive without a doubt. But I also think there's a bubble there that brands and end user clients, they're going to figure out how to implement AI themselves, right? They're not going to need an agency to do it for them.
Right.
There's not a whole lot that can't be figured out by a brand side team to do that. So I don't know that that's going to be a long-term play. I think that's a bubble thing in the next few years we're going to see the end of. So that like third stage, those folks are really rocking. And I'm excited for them.
Yeah. Are agencies nervous that AI is going to get rid of the need for an agency?
Yeah, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
What is it, Sam Altman said, like, 80% of our industry isn't going to be around in 3 or 5 years. Those numbers might be misremembered on my part, but I will say that there's a mass amount of agencies that don't need to exist anymore, right? Shoot me for saying that. I think we have just a massive influx from COVID. People lost their jobs and said, I'm going to start an agency. Yeah. They soon figured out, oh, I need to learn how to run a business. All the things that come along with that. Now, the back end challenge there is there are no jobs. So I don't know what they're going to do, but I'm okay with like 30% of our agencies going away. I'm okay with like re-level setting what the playing field looks like and whether they merge up, whether they close down, I don't know what the solutions are, but yeah, so there is definitely fear that AI is going to take my job. I don't know that it's going to happen overnight. I mean, you've seen some of the stuff that AI puts out. It's garbage. It's not production ready. Will it reduce teams' size by 10, 20, 30%? Most likely that'll happen before agencies are completely replaced. But if you extrapolate that out and like 10% here and 10% there and 10% there, like there's a lot of jobs that are being taken by AI.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier, a lot of agency owners are almost panic selling and closing down. What are the clients that you work with? I know you do a lot of M&A consulting, but what is that kind of looking like?
I guess the backstory in my mind is, so I sold my agency a bunch of years ago, and it was at a time where I was not very experienced in M&A. We had done a small acquisition like 5 years prior, and it was like a small acqui-hire, and it doubled our book of business very quickly, and it was a really great move. It wasn't something that I like saw that this was an unlock in growth, and I wish I had seen that at the time. Looking back, I'm like, dude, what were you thinking? Why didn't you keep doing that? So selling my business was not something I planned for. Literally a year prior, I was going through like a divorce mediation, and I said to my then like soon to be ex-wife, like, I'm never selling this business. So it's not even on the table for negotiation. Like, I'm not ever selling it. And then a year later, I was like, it's time to get out.
Wow.
So had I held on longer, lesson learned, I could have grown it in a healthier manner and sold it for a lot more. So my exit was not life-changing money. It accomplished all the things that I wanted it to accomplish. I was burnt out. I wanted a paycheck. I didn't want to be the breadwinner for a dozen employees anymore. I wanted to see a stronger growth plan with a partnership with another agency. So it checked all those boxes. What I'm seeing now is agency owners that are like fear selling or panic selling, whether it's through, I'm just going to do an acqui-hire and get a job with this agency and bring along my book of business. If they hold on and do it in a more strategic way, there is a roadmap where they can grow their business into a healthier organization, and you might love this, take themselves out of the day-to-day, right? Let it operate itself and exit for a much higher multiplier. So panic selling, like, it's never, I got to get rid of this car right away. I'll take whatever I can get for it. versus I don't need to get rid of this car. Whenever the right deal comes along, I'm going to sell the car, right? So two totally different scenarios. And the coaching that I typically do is like, forget about M&A. It's let's get your business ready to sell, even if you don't want to sell it, because that's just a really well-oiled machine that who wouldn't want a business that's running really well
Yeah.
and profits are high, team is operating well, you've got strong procedures, the owner is out of the day-to-day, maybe the last thing they hold on to is owner-led sales, right?
Yeah.
That's just a really solid organization. Why wouldn't you want that?
Right. And once you hit that point, you get to decide if you want to keep it or sell it. And then
Exactly.
you have a business that you might want to keep.
Right.
Right. So how important is, from your perspective, and you've obviously been through a transaction, removing yourself from that day-to-day seat, and how removed do you actually have to be? Because I think it's a gray area. I know from what I've learned in the M&A space, like how involved can an agency owner be in the day-to-day to still get a meaningful exit down the line?
Yeah, it really comes down to what it is that they want to get out of the exit. Do they want to go through the integration 90 days, 100 days, and then be completely out and just go live on an island somewhere? If that's the case, then they need to be completely out of it. They need to have procedures for everything. They need to have the right people in the right seats. But if they're like, you know what, I'm okay with, I want to take like a almost full-time job with the agency that acquires mine, so I'm willing to be a part of the biz dev or operations or something like that, then they don't necessarily need to be out of it. But again, being out of it means that they can take longer vacations, they can take maternity leave, they can like do these things that the business isn't sitting there like a dog waiting for a bone,
Right.
right?
Right.
It keeps not only operating but growing in their absence. And that's just super, super valuable. So it depends on what they want post-exit,
Right.
post-acquisition.
Right. And from your perspective, when you sold your agency to the larger, was it a PR firm?
It was, yeah.
PR firm. And you stayed on, correct?
Yeah.
What was that like? Going from owning your business and making all those decisions to then being an employee?
Oh, man, great question. It was a mix, right? So it was a huge relief. I had a 2-year earnout. I ended up staying for an additional 3 years. And it took the first 2 years to learn how to be an employee again,
I bet.
right? Think about how many entrepreneurs we say like, oh, we're unemployable.
Yeah.
Like that takes relearning of habits of I'm not in charge of everything. It's not always appropriate for me to insert myself into a thing. When the accountant comes in to talk to the owners, I'm not at that table, and that's okay.
Right.
So like, you know, my acquisition did not bring me into any equity in the new business, and I was okay with that. Like I didn't want that.
You were burnt out.
Yeah, I was just like, let me be an employee.
Right.
Give me my job and I will do it really well, you know. That said, you've probably seen it a million times, the job description that says, has to have an entrepreneurial spirit. I don't think that's always the right move for hiring somebody because I
Right.
don't know that that necessarily exists as often as we think it does. But that kind of, I'll quote a client of mine, John from First Ascent Design, they've got to have the FITFO, the figure it the F out attitude.
Yeah.
And so for me to say, I don't want to be the entrepreneurial part of this business, but I'll do my job really well, and I'll see avenues that we can continue to excel as a team, and I'll bring that to the entire leadership team that I was also a part of, and so I think they saw value in that, but they weren't looking for me to bring any kind of ownership mindset.
Interesting.
And I think there's a big difference. Like I talk about, there's 3 levels of like the employment factor, right? So there's a freelancer who has that mindset that I want to work for multiple agencies. I want to like work when I want to work, and like whatever, go to the beach when I want to go to the beach, or go to yoga, or like whatever that thing is. There's that employee mindset of like, I'm a really good employee. I'm good at what I do. I'm driven. I know how to drive value. I know how to like, earn my keep, so to speak. And then there's the entrepreneur person with that entrepreneurial mindset. It is rare that those 3 mindsets shift from one to another. Like if I want to hire somebody with an entrepreneurial mindset If they are that entrepreneurial, they would already be running their own business.
Yeah.
So for me to think that they're going to bring that game to my team and be entrepreneurial, I'm setting myself up for disappointment.
Right.
If I think that the freelancer that's a rock star, they kick ass for me and my team, they always over deliver and they undercharge, is going to eventually become a loyal employee, that mindset for them is not going to shift into, but I like going to the beach for 2 hours a day, or like whatever that thing is.
Right.
As an employee, mostly the expectation is you're going to give me 40 hours
Yeah.
when I need you to give me 40 hours. That flexibility is gone. Right? So those three mindsets are like very different things.
Right. And so for you, when you went from being that entrepreneur to then being the employee, did you struggle over those first
Yeah.
couple of years?
Easily, like the first 18 months to 2 years, I did.
Yeah.
I so I had recently gone through a divorce, so I had a lot of time on my hands, and I put a lot of that time into this new job that I had. So working extra long hours, and I would have done that had I had my own business still, but now I was doing it for somebody else, and I didn't necessarily need to, right? I don't believe that, like, all right, in our industry, there's a 9 to 5, you like punch the clock at 5 o'clock and you're done. But I definitely think I took it to an extreme. So it was an unhealthy balance for me. It was really understanding that while I want to perform and I want the agency to do better, because I get rewarded if we do better,
Right.
right? I had a really good incentive package. If we lose a client, it's not on me to make sure that everybody eats.
Right.
Like that was one of the biggest things for me to like really let go of. These large executive decisions of who's our payroll provider or the accountant, like I said, the reports from the accountant. None of my business really. Like I trust that the owners are going to make payroll. That impacts me. I trust that everybody else is doing their job and the people that were in my department I was responsible for. But the overall agency health, not really my responsibility.
Yeah. A lot of people say that when you do sell your business, most people become depressed and they become, I don't know, like they don't have a vision for their life anymore or something.
Yeah.
And being on one side of it, when you own your own business, you're like, that wouldn't happen to me. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you felt like that. You were just so burnt out
Yeah.
that this was like all you wanted and all you needed. But once you got to that other side, did you have like, were you actually that relieved, or were you like, why did I do this?
There was no regret. Like I was very relieved. I took like a week or two off in between like shutting down my business, transitioning things over, and then starting this job. The transition period was, we built out a 90-day transition period. We, talked about internal comms, external comms, like how are we going to integrate these clients? How are we going to cross-sell services? Like, so we had a really robust integration plan. So for me, there was no void of like, what do I do now?
Right.
I didn't have any kind of like depression around that necessarily. When I acquired the agency that we rolled into mine, the founder wanted nothing. She just wanted out.
Right.
She was like, here's my client base. Here's my employees. One employee, I hired her employee. She became like one of my first full-time employees, maybe my second. And so the owner, Tracy, wanted nothing to do with it. A few months later, I checked in with her and she was like, I have no idea what I'm doing with myself. Like I am now a full-time mom. It's not a job I ever wanted. And her kid was like maybe 5 or 6 at that point. And she's like, I need something to do. I'm bored. And like eventually found her way into a career path, which she absolutely thrives at. But I've seen many agency owners make that exit, go through the integration plan, and now like I've got this massive void of 60 hours a week that I used to run a business. What the heck am I doing? I'm an avid fisherman. I couldn't fish that much to fill it. Like that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
How many hobbies are you, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Often I think it's finding the like what entrepreneurial itch needs to be scratched at that point.
Oh, that's a good one.
I was talking to an owner this morning who's working through an exit, and he's got like all these projects that he's working on. He's on his agency like 10 hours a week. That's it. It's a multiple 7-figure agency. He's built it up in such a way that he doesn't need to be in the day to day. And so he's working on a movie project and like things that have nothing to do with his business.
That's awesome.
that scratch the entrepreneurial itch. And so I think that's kind of what that path forward should be, that the freedoms that come along with an exit allow you to define what's next for anything you want it to be.
Yeah. Interesting. So, on that note of defining what you want your business to actually be, something that I've noticed in the industry, especially coming off COVID, where things were booming in our industry after COVID, and you could basically create anything you wanted, multiple six-figure agency, everyone was scaling, everyone was selling. It was just this ecosystem of craziness, and people were just creating businesses and scaling. And, we also grew a lot after COVID. But I think with that, a lot of people were chasing something that maybe wasn't exactly what they wanted. And maybe they're starting to realize that after things are kind of like simmering down. But what's your perspective on maybe people who are copying other people and trying to become this huge agency owner when maybe they haven't taken the pause to think about what they want?
Yeah. I love that you brought that up. I talk a lot about copycat goals. I was a victim of copycatting goals myself. And I think it becomes one of two possible scenarios. One is we just get in the momentum of building and building and building for the sake of building and not thinking about, taking the time to step back and think, what do I really want? Why am I running this business? Why am I chasing in this direction? Versus, let me establish a set of goals that are meaningful to me and my family and my team and their families. And maybe 5 or 7 employees is really where we need to stay at. Versus, why am I scaling to 10, 20 employees for what? For the sake of it. And so I do think there's a toxicity of listening to people and, whatever, eviscerate me for this or not, I don't care. The guys like Hermosi that are like throwing numbers down people's throats and people are like, I want that. Like, dude works really hard and he gets it and fine. I don't know that that's for everyone, but we see these people that are like, the Grant Cardones of the world or whatever. Like, that's not for everybody. And to think that anybody else can get it is kind of what that misfit American dream is, but that's not what everybody should be chasing. Mm-hmm. So I do believe that be inspired by these people that have like achieved these massive things, but bring it down to your own reality. Like having a 7-figure agency, so for me, the number 7 figures, I give all blame to like the EO organizations of the world that say, in order to be a member, you've got to have $1 million in revenue. It's a stupid benchmark. I don't know that it really means much other than you're in a different tax bracket. Maybe you've got an opportunity to like bring on certain support into your team that you wouldn't have if you're a $500,000 business. But it doesn't equate to happiness, and that's what I'm saying. And if having 7-8-figure business defines the impact that people want to have in the world and defines the happiness that they can have with themselves and their family, and it's a path towards that long-term happiness, I'm all for it. I will cheerlead the hell out of somebody that wants that, and I will help them get there. But make it have a purpose.
Yeah.
Make it make sense. Don't just chase it because it's cool. It's not cool. It's a lot of work, and you're putting a lot of people in line to help build this thing that if it's not meaningful, they're not going to find the meaning in it either. Mm-hmm. Like, think about the team's rally cry when they feel the passion from the vision and passion from a CEO because they really believe in the goals that they're setting versus the team that's like, I don't know why we're chasing this growth goal.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think I'm not going to say one is easier than the other, but I do think having the true value behind what are a set of goals that mean something to people makes it worth fighting for.
Mm-hmm. And when an agency owner comes to you and they, maybe their business is doing $500,000 a year and they say, I want to hit 7 figures this year. Mm-hmm. What do you say to them?
Why? What does 7 figures give you that $500,000 doesn't? I probably know the answer, but I really want them to say it. I really want to pull out the authenticity of what they want and why they want it.
Right.
And if it's because, listen, at $500,000, I'm only making whatever, $100K for my family, and I know at 1 million I can double that for my personal revenue, cool, let's do that. If it's because it sounds cool, if it's because that's what my friends are doing, if it's because then I can get into a club, I don't buy that. I don't think that makes a ton of sense. In the 10 years I ran my agency, in hindsight, we were the happiest and healthiest when we were around 750 in revenue and about 4 or 5 people with freelancers as needed. When we hit 1.25 million with 12 people, most of us were pretty miserable.
Interesting.
It was not ideal. My margins were a lot less at that point. There could have been a lot of work we could have done to optimize those margins. But yeah, we were a lot happier around 750 in revenue than adding that extra 500,000.
Interesting. So obviously that's something you can say in hindsight. And I think until you actually grow and scale a business to multiple 7 figures, it's like you're on this path and you just want to hit it. And then once you hit it, you look back and say, oh, I wish I could go back there, but I can't go back there for whatever.
But you can.
You can.
Yeah.
But shrinking a business can feel very daunting, or it feels like you're going backwards, or, all these things. So how do you, as a coach, explain or like describe this to somebody who doesn't understand that because they haven't gone through it? And that's probably the whole point of a coach, right? Is like, how do you work people through that when they haven't gone through it yet? But
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's a lot like therapy, a lot of the sessions that I have with clients of like, let's really look back at when you were the happiest running your business. What did that picture look like? What does the picture of you being the happiest potentially look like? Is it different than it is now? And if so, is it right-sizing your business? I've helped probably a dozen agencies right-size their business, realizing that the people they have are not the right people, the size from a head count or revenue or the kind of clients they're working with. Giving somebody the freedom to fire a client is probably the greatest gift I've ever been able to give somebody. We've got this toxic client, they're 20% of our revenue. Well, I can't let them go because then I've got to let people go. Okay, good. Let them all go. Why are you holding on to a toxic client just to pay somebody?
Yeah.
I get giving people a job is a great gift, and I love being able to do that. But man, the freedom of letting that go is massive. So yeah, I mean, right sizing and working through what does that right size for each person and each business look like? It's different for every business.
Yeah.
I do think it comes back to like, why do I own a business?
Yeah.
Well, what do I want to get out of it? How does it impact me and my family and like my personal goals? That's why we should be like running a business, especially at this size. Like, we're not beholden to shareholders and stock prices and NASDAQ nonsense.
Yeah.
So you're 10 people, you're 20 people, like it comes down to the families.
Yeah. Yeah. That is, and I think having someone like you in their corner who has gone through it and can say, I know what this feels like to grow and scale a business for no reason.
Yeah.
And giving people that advice and just that being that shining light for them would be so impactful.
Yeah. I think, again, either letting go of a toxic client or being in a position where you can ultimately start saying no to potential clients. It's such a great freedom.
Yeah.
Staying focused on whether it's a vertical or, these are the kind of clients. We're not going to accept any yellow flags, let alone red flags, like green flags only on any client that we bring on, because we're in a strong position. So many agencies, like, they act out of, more fear driven than success driven, or they're that scarcity mindset of, if I say no to this client, we're not going to get the next client. It's like, no, if you say no to the wrong clients, you're saving space for the right clients.
That's right. Yeah. And sometimes they get in anyways, and then you have to fire them. And that having the freedom to be able to do that too is great.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. So when those clients come in and the agency is managing the clientele. You work with a lot of agencies who the agency owner is that account manager as well. And they're looking to get out of it, and they're looking to bring in an account manager to relieve them from some of that stress. What are some of the, I don't want to say complaints, but what are some of the things that are getting in the agency owner's way before they bring in an account manager to relieve them from some of that pressure?
I'd say that the two main things, one is, how am I going to pay for this person? Right? Because in most cases, making that jump from owner-led account management to putting a person in place is how is it going to get paid for? And educating them around the fact that that person should be paying for themselves in how they're managing an account and growing an account. So it's that. And then the second part is really about, like, how do I get all of these processes out of my brain and get out of my own way? So delegate to elevate, that kind of a mindset, putting a process in place and then saying, I'm hiring you, here's your job, I trust you with my clients. Mm-hmm. I guess a second and a half or third part of that is, at early stages in a business or smaller stages in a business, all of those relationships are tied directly to the owner. Mm-hmm. So now I'm going to transfer that relationship to somebody else. It comes along with a lot of trust. Mm-hmm. But I think tying it back to putting you in charge of these accounts, here's how we manage accounts, here's the values that we live by and how we instill that, like, in our relationships with our clients. Your goal is to maintain that trust and grow these accounts by X KPI. Here's how we're going to do it.
Yep.
And so now you're paying, that person is paying for themselves with whatever 20% year-over-year growth on an account. It should pay for an account management. Mm-hmm. And then some, be profitable, 2-3x that person.
Yep.
But that's one of the biggest things that an owner has to get off their plate so they can focus on growth or vision or the thing that they want to be doing as a business owner.
Yeah. So when they're kind of at this crossroads of, okay, it's been me with all my clients, all the strategy sessions, all the sales, and I want to get here, wherever that here is. And there's this gap between where they are and where they want to be. And generally what I see from agency owners is that it's time and energy and focus.
Yeah.
They don't have the time to do sales. They don't have the time to focus on strategy. They don't have the time to think about even growing their business, being the CEO, because they spend all day in Slack messaging their clients or on client calls or, answering fires. Mm-hmm. How do you coach an agency to let go? Because something that we see, and this is a bottleneck when we're working with agency owners, is they get all excited. They're ready to bring in an account manager. They have the SOPs, they plug this person in, and then they're not willing to ever step away. And it's those agency owners who are in the right mindset because they know where they're going, that we can work together to allow that to happen for them. But there's sometimes those agency owners who just, they can't let go.
Yeah.
How do you help them?
That's a tough one because, again, it comes back to, like, what is their mindset around delegating and not micromanaging? Mm-hmm. I know plenty of owners, I'm sure you do too, where it's like, yeah, I don't know how to trust somebody to do their job and give them the autonomy of, this is what I've asked you to do, go and excel at it. So I do think there's, like, a toxicity in the mindset of what that owner knows how to let go of. And it probably ties back to, and listen, I'm not an actual therapist. I'm not a trauma-informed therapist like my friend Kelly, but it probably ties back to something in their childhood trauma or something, growing up where they are afraid to trust somebody to do a thing for them. And so working through that personally and bring that into the profession might make a lot of sense. But I'll show them just the numbers of it. If you trust this person to do their job, it gives you X amount of time back in your day. What could you do with that time in your day? And they'll say, oh, I could probably close X amount of new business, or I could, spend more time with my kid, or like whatever that thing is. Great, what's the value of that? And so showing them, if you can't get through to the emotional side of what's holding them back from trusting, show them the spreadsheet, right? They're either, like, emotionally driven or they're data set driven. And so if you can show them the data that says when you trust somebody to do project management for you and you're not in a sauna 17 hours a day, things move a lot quicker. Efficiencies are created. Profitability is somehow found in the bank account.
Yeah.
You know, so showing them like what these roles give them the freedom to do as they're, like you said, going, I want to go from here to whatever here is. That is delegating and elevating. That is getting out of the way and just learning to trust. Take a shot. And if it doesn't work, revisit it.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, let's find out why. If it doesn't work, maybe it's the wrong person. Maybe the job description is wrong. Maybe you thought you were building a unicorn of a job description, and frankly, that just doesn't exist. So stop trying to make that happen.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Is there a certain point when you say, okay, enough's enough, you need to get out of the way? Is there like a number? Is there I don't know, what do you look for?
I mean, typically it's, so an agency owner came to me 3.5 years ago in Boston. They were making 200 to 300K a year with just hourly billing clients. And they were working, I don't know, 5-6 days a week, 12, 15-hour days, and burnt the heck out. Like, of course you're burnt out. I said, all right, first thing we need to do is get some new talent on your team. You are making enough money, you can put another designer, brand strategist, web developer, etc. in place. Great. Now let's get project management off your plate. Well, I can't afford project management. I said, you can't afford to not have a project manager because your husband doesn't know who you are, right? So like, again, bring it back to what is the value of putting this person in place? So fast forward, we've been working 3.5, almost 4 years now. They're just about 800K in revenue, a team of 6, and they're not working more than 50 hours a week. And that's where they want to be comfortably. The biggest force multiplier for them there was putting a project manager in place to get themselves out of managing client flow, managing workflow, managing milestones, all of that. And so they get to do the work that they love doing for the amount of time that's healthy for them, So, defining, I take an agency owner through an exercise of like, what are all the things that you're doing in your day-to-day and your week-to-week? Let's literally make a list of it. How much time are you, and if you're using time tracking, great, there's AI tools that'll do it. You can use a notepad, it doesn't matter. How much time are you spending doing all of these things? Now, let's identify the ones you can delegate to a fractional AM, a fractional PM, an in-house, what are the roles and what is the definition of the role? How much time does that add up to you? For you in a week. In any given week, I guarantee that's 20% of your time, 30% of your time, right? So do that math. Yeah. So I think that's what it comes down to, is showing them what it can become for them.
Yeah. I know for me, before I brought in even an assistant, I was like, I don't even know what she's going to do. Now she runs my whole business.
Yeah. And now you're like, I couldn't survive without them.
She's literally my right hand. I don't understand what I did before.
Yep.
And it's the same for most of our clients as well. They come in, they're like, yeah, I spend, 30 hours a week on account management. It's like, what? Like, imagine if you got all of that off your plate. What are you doing? You're 10xing your business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the case of like a VA or an account manager, you're identifying, here's what I need. But when you put the right person in place, they're going to say, cool, I can do that. But also, watch me do this.
Yeah.
And what if we did that? So putting the right person in there, it just multiplies what you're given back based on what you thought your needs were.
Right.
Does that, I don't even know if I'm explaining that properly, but
yeah. And I think we think we're so good at everything as business owners and no one else can do it as good. Then you get someone in there who's better at it than you. And it's quite a humbling experience.
Yeah.
Now I'm just like, of course Audrey's doing this. I'm not qualified anymore.
I've retired myself out of that role.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It is humbling, but here we are.
Yeah.
So what? Go ahead.
The other thing that I think is super valuable there, again, is like thinking about the things that you thought you were bringing this person in to do for you and what they end up actually doing for you. In the case of getting an owner out of day-to-day client interaction and allowing an AM or a PM or whatever that role looks like, do it for you, it now gives you the ability as the owner to check in with a client. I call it regular irregularity,
Mm,
which means internally it's scheduled. So I know every 17 days I've got to check in with somebody or every quarter, but the client thinks it's kind of random, right?
right.
So it's strategic. And you're not in the day to day, so it's not like you're checking in about a deliverable or an invoice that's overdue. You're just checking in like, hey, how was Timmy's softball game? Or like learning how to shore up the trust in the relationship
Yeah.
and things like that in conjunction with the account management team doing that. The other thing that it allows you to do is when you need to, you can step in and be the bad guy. When the account manager is having a really tough time making a thing happen, you're not in the day to day, so you can step in with some level of like assertiveness or authority and support your team and kind of go to bat for them for the client, with the client. So I think there's a lot of value in that as well.
Yeah. I agree. Having that outside perspective is so key. Like when you're not in the weeds and being able to look at it high level and take emotion out of it, it gives you that ability to kind of pull yourself out.
I'm curious from your like SOP standpoint, what is I guess the perspective on how and when an AM that's placed onto a team from you guys would want the founder to jump in or would want not the like go to bat for me, defend me against this client, but like help me do this upsell or like what does that look like?
Yeah. It's unique for every agency, of course, but in the first example of I need you to come in and go to bat for me, my big methodology is we don't want the agency owner to be in the dark about things. We
Right.
want them to be involved and know what's going on and feel like they have that baby monitor on without feeling the emotional baggage that comes with managing clients. So, of course, if there's a situation where this could go one way or the other, it could get worse.
Hmm.
That's when I would want to bring in the agency owner and at least give them the opportunity to come into it. And
Yeah.
I'm always, you know, recommending to say, I'm confident to have this conversation on my own. But if you feel this is a point where you'd like to come in, I'm more than happy to kind of have you in these conversations. I think transparency is always key.
Yeah.
And then in terms of upsell opportunities, we want to upsell as much as possible, or at least find the opportunities to upsell. And then if it makes sense to have the agency owner swoop in and make that, cherry on top sale, perfect. If we can be the person to kind of tee that up for them, that's a win for us.
Yeah.
But again, if that's something that the agency owner wants to be fully removed from and we take that on, that's great as well. It really depends on the agency owner and how involved they want to be, kind of coming back to those goals and really understanding what they want this relationship to look like and kind of building that SOP around that specific agency situation.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. It comes back to the famous answer of it depends.
Yeah.
But you also raise a really good point of one of those things that might hold the founder back from getting out of that AM space is they fear they'll be in the dark then, and they won't be. Like build the process so that your team is in fluid communication about what's going on with the client. You don't need to know whatever, this the minutia of it, but certainly you'll know the big picture of what an account is doing, what stage a project is in, how your team is, vibing with the client, things like that. But yeah, the minutia of it, you don't need to be involved in it, and there shouldn't be any fear around that. Let it go.
Exactly. Let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, Steve, this was a really insightful conversation. And I think agency owners, we're in a unique point of our industry's growth and things are changing every day. And I think it's a lonely time. And having people like you in our corner is so important. I know
Thank you.
as an agency owner, it's lonely. And that saying is lonely at the top. It's very true. And for me, I've always looked for people who I can have real honest conversations with, like you. And I think that is just going to become even more valuable as we go through this year and the years to come. So I highly recommend anyone who is growing an agency and you have big goals, whether it be to stay the same or to 10x your business, to find somebody like a Steve and his team to kind of lean on. So would love to hear more about how you help agencies, Steve.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It means the world to me, and your friendship means the world to me. I do, the core of my business is coaching, and what that looks like is different for a lot of agencies, but I do like one-on-one coaching. Looks a lot like this. It's therapy for agency owners. It's strategic goal planning, things like that. And then I run mastermind groups of agency owners. These are cohorts of six-ish headcount owners. They're cohorts designed that are of similar sized agencies. And then I do M&A advisory, where I help build an acquisition plan and guide an owner through, once we've gotten them out of the day-to-day, what's next? And so, that entrepreneurial spirit is like, I want something more, bigger, whatever, faster, whatever. And so if they are M&A curious, like we'll take them through what this playbook looks like and guide them through, making acquisitions to add enterprise value to their business, so that roadmap to an exit is life-changing versus like, yeah, I sold my business and now I'm working a full-time job somewhere else.
Right.
So, again, aligning all of that with what their core goals are. So I'm all about getting rid of the copycat goals. I'm all about authentic goal setting for the founder, stripping away the wrong goals, identifying the challenges, and guiding them through that journey.
Wonderful. Well, we will link everything to Steve's amazing group. And I will say, everyone that I've met who works with Steve, they're all wonderful. So you attract a really awesome type of agency owner.
Thank you. Yeah. I love all my clients. They're all amazing. So I'm grateful to do the work that I do and help them, just help them make their businesses better, which makes their lives better.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Steve. And thank you for tuning into another episode of the Happy Clients podcast. We will continue to have amazing guests like Steve on the show and share with you any insights we can to help you grow and scale your agency. Thanks for tuning in.
Cheers to happy clients.